So this video critique, I'm going to be desensitizing Winslow to the stick and string. Again, he's turning away. He's thinking about wanting to be somewhere else. I'm kind of talking about where I'd like him to be, how much lead rope I want, and then kind of where you should put your stick and string. Now again, you can do this in a lot better way. I'm just using like way too much pressure. So having him at this position is fine. And then kind of the thing about the stick is I need to use less pressure. So I'm starting it at like pretty high intensity. Like there, like I'm putting it on his back and then taking it off really quickly. Like that's a really high intensity for a lot of horses. Again, you can see his head up, his ears are back. His body positioning and muscles look tense, like he's standing kind of strange. He's looking away a lot. Like you've seen that throughout the whole video series so far. He's like, I'd like to be over here, I'm not here. He's with that very first lesson when I was flooding him with the rope essentially, he's learned I can only stand here, but I can like just hope and think that I'm somewhere else. He's just disassociating himself from the situation. So he learned that right away. And that's like step one of teaching your horse to shut down. So um, but I mean, you could do this in a nicer way, a better way with the stick and string. I don't really do this kind of desensitizing anymore. Because it's not really necessary when you use positive reinforcement. But if you wanted to use this, again, this is a good body positioning. So I have like 2 feet of lead rope. I'm at a good angle, so he's not gonna like run over me or something. But I'm way too intense with the stick. So I don't need to start that off right off the bat. I need to be just like, if I want to pick up my stick and then maybe have it go over his back and then take it off. And then very gently do that again. I don't need to start with just swinging it over really fast and then taking it off really fast so it makes a noise. And then again, like we're still flooding because he's getting a little worried here. So this is a good example of a horse that's kind of shut down, and then you get to like a position, like a spot on him, or something else changes in the environment, and he kind of loses it. So like I kind of moved to the hindquarters, maybe something happened outside, and he backs up and then he moves away. So that's a good example of he was quiet, he was standing like to the outside observer who's not really observing the other subtleties in his body language. Oh, he looks fine, he's just staying still, and then he's moving and he's afraid really fast. So and then again, we're still flooding because he cannot escape. He can move around, but that's not escaping. So he's being subject to this, what the negative reinforcement world, natural horsemanship world, um, describes as desensitizing. It's not. We're flooding him because he cannot escape and he just has to stand there and kind of take it. So same kind of thing as we did with the rope, just kind of with the stick. Lots of like him looking out here. I mean, he's like coming back like to me faster because I've been pulling on his face. So like now like I kind of pull a little bit, so kind of sequencing, not there was no sequencing of the cues, but he knows, okay, if I don't bring my head back it's going to get pulled on essentially. Um some horses don't learn that without any sequencing, but some do, because it's just punishing. So I'm punishing the head turn, so then if I barely pick up on it, he's bringing his head back. So there's no sequencing, it's punishment. um it would work better if I sequenced it. So if I gently picked up and then if he didn't add a little bit more pressure, that would be sequencing. So I'm going to do the same thing on this other side here. Again, he's kind of looking out to his left, out into the fields there. Head and neck is up. I'm again just punishing here, so he had his head turned, so I'm just bumping it back to me, which is something that's pretty commonly taught, like in the natural horsemanship world. You're like, I guess the reasoning would be keep their attention on you at all times. I don't know. But by doing that, like what you're doing in reality is punishing being near you, because he's standing near me and then he's being bumped on. He's like, well, I'm standing here and this person's just like applying a bunch of pressure to the halter. So in effect, it's doing the complete opposite. If I didn't have this halter and lead rope on, he'd probably be in that far corner of the arena there. So um, I want to point that out because that is definitely one of those things that's been taught a lot, is like keep their attention on you. It's like you're just putting a bunch of pressure on them. So it's really in reality doing the complete opposite. He's probably better on this right side because he's been worked less on this right side. Just in general, most domestic horses are worked with more on that left side. So I do think part of that is this right side. We haven't done as much on there. But he is understanding, like, with what we just did on the left side, like, moving around does not work. He is better off just standing there and waiting for me to stop. So, and like rubbing him on the neck is not going to be a reward. I talked about that a little bit before in other videos. Some trainers make it out to be, but there's no like clear context for that. So, he's not going to think, okay, well, I'm doing a good job, or this is reinforcing the standing still behavior, because it's not. Scratching can, if the horse really really enjoys it, but I'm just kind of rubbing his neck for like 2 seconds, or like his forehead for 2 seconds. Um, so that's not reinforcing to him. That's not creating more of the behaviors I want. And that's what a reinforcer does. Um, he does finally kind of lower his neck a little bit. I think he's just kind of over the whole situation, but he's still not relaxed.